We're going to pick up again our study of the book of Revelation. We ended week before last looking at chapter 8, verse 13, and the eagle. And we talked about that, but really what I wanted to look at as we start into our lesson this morning is the message of that being. Some translations have angel, other translations have eagle. There's Greek for both. I don't see a problem either way with it, whichever translation you choose to use. But the message that he called out in midair, woe, woe, woe to the inhabitants of the earth, because of the trumpet blast about to be sounded by the other three angels, New International Version. And the message that this being gives to the inhabitants of the earth is interesting. And the phrase, even in and of itself, inhabitants of the earth. So far, all of the trumpet sounds have inflicted damage and attack on the physical earth itself. Its ability to sustain life, its ability to, just as I said, sustain life. We have the first trumpet. A third of the earth was burned up, trees, green grass. Second angel, sea turned into blood. Third of the living creatures. Third angel, the springs of water were affected. Fourth angel, the sun. And third of the moon, third of the stars turned dark or were darkened. So all of these are physical attacks upon the creation itself. But beginning with the fifth trumpet, and we'll talk about this, and this is the message of this angel, this eagle or angel that is flying, that the inhabitants of the earth, now as if they've not already been affected, but this phrase carries a different idea. The inhabitants of the earth really looks at the attitude of people who are living on earth. So the question is, what's the big deal about being an inhabitant of the earth? Woe to the inhabitants of the earth. I mean, aren't we all inhabitants of the earth? All of us are dependent upon nature to be able to live and be sustained and to, all the things that we do. Jobs, food, survival, all of this. So, what could be the woe to the inhabitants of the earth? What's the big deal about being in this idea of an inhabitant? This emphasis on that. What's the temptation of, or not just so much the temptation, but what is the attitude of lost people toward creation? What is it that they follow? Creature. They worship the earth. What it does, what it can bring them. The food, the sustenance, the life, all of these things. Their emphasis is upon earth. And as Paul said in Romans 1:25, that lost people have exchanged the truth of God for a lie and worship and serve created things rather than the Creator. So what this phrase, and we'll see it again and again in the rest of the book, that this phrase really talks about people whose dedication is to life on and in this world versus a spiritual relationship with any God, for that matter, and especially the Christian God. And we see this in so much emphasis that we have today in all of the ecological stuff, all of the things that we're supposed to do to be healthy and live well and take care of the earth and all that, which none of that in and of itself is bad. But when you choose to do that versus really realizing that we are temporarily here anyway, and that our major importance in life is to be surrendered to God, we start worshiping the creature rather than the Creator. That's the problem, and that's what's going to be attacked, beginning in the 5th chapter. Now, lost people focus on this. This is what they do. For us as believers, the temptation and the need is to be able to balance living in this world. The challenge for us as believers is much the same, but from a different angle. We must balance living in this world with the command to love not the world or anything in the world. 1 John chapter 2, verses 15 through 17. And there's other passages in the New Testament that talk about this. So, even as much as we live in and we are a part of this world, as believers, we have to balance that and realize that our main focus is on our relationship with God, not this world, not this life. And it's kind of like this. What is it that we seek to live for and satisfy in spite of everything? What is it that drives us in this way? This is the battleground, if you will, of ideas around worldliness. And it's interesting, that idea of worldliness, a focus on the world, a focus of being an inhabitor, a focus on being a dweller, a focus on being, this is the important thing in life, is living in this world. Worldliness, and then holiness, which is otherness, to be other, which is a relationship with Jesus Christ. In other words, what do our actions in our lives say about where our heart is? Jesus put it this way, wherever your treasure is, there will your heart be. So wherever your heart is, that we can say is your treasure. You can just flip that right around and it still works. So it's to those whose hearts are grounded in this life only that the next 3 trumpets, direct their sound. So that phrase, the inhabitants of the earth, is not just saying just people in general, but people who are dedicated to living in this life, compared or in contrast to living for God. Questions, comments, clarifications, consternation, whatever it might be. So, moving into chapter 9, the 5th angel sounded his trumpet, and I saw a star that had fallen from the sky to the earth. The star was given the key to the shaft of the abyss. So, when the 5th angel sounds, we are immediately confronted with several questions. The star. Who or what is this star that had fallen from the sky to the earth? Now, that it's not the same star as seen in chapter 8, verse 10, because there you have a great star blazing like a torch fell from the sky. This is different because this star has intelligence, power, and has authority. So we're not talking about a physical star falling. We're talking evidently about a spiritual or a symbolic meaning that is assigned to this star as a being. So, what do you think this is?
It's associated with an angel.
Okay. Associated with an angel. Heard someone say Satan. Other ideas? Things that you may have heard in preaching or reading? that's basically the two main areas right there. Some commentators say that this is a fallen angel, part of the group of Satan's minions, demon in other words. And from 2 Peter chapter 2 verse 4 and Jude 6, we know that sin originated with one angel in particular and involved the other angels in the presence of God. Matthew chapter 25 verse 41 speaks of the devil and his angels. So, and the person we know as the devil was originally an angel close to the throne of God. Isaiah chapter 14 verse 12 through 17, Isaiah actually uses the term star in that passage. And Ezekiel chapter 28 verse 11 through 19, both of these reference beyond the local circumstances of what the prophets were talking about at that time. And Lucifer, through pride, fell. And Jesus talks about this in Luke chapter 10, verse 18. So, though still an angel being, Satan is a fallen star. So, the two could very well be linked. Yes, it's an angel. It's a fallen angel. Lucifer, or one of his minions. But the word here for fallen is interesting. The Greek tense of that word is a perfect active participle, which indicates a past action with continuing results. In other words, Lucifer has continued in his departure from his original nature, which implies that there is no ability for him to recover. There are some belief systems that actually say that the devil is going to get saved in the end. That Jesus' death is so great and so powerful that it covers everything, including Lucifer. Even Lucifer is going to be saved. So everybody's going to heaven.
Where did they get that from?
I have no idea. I think it's, and I'm trying to remember, it may be, I hate to mention the guy's name, but it may be Karl Barth. And he was a German theologian, 50s, 60s, 40s maybe. But
the scriptures don't even close to
no,
supporting that idea. So.
no, I think what he does, and he has a real weird philosophy. And that's what he's following, his philosophy of thought. And I think if Jesus died for all, then all includes even those that are lost now. They'll get another chance, you know. But even if Satan got another chance, he would choose and do the very same thing because his nature is set. And I think even people in hell, if they had another chance, they would choose the same thing again. Because they have chosen to rebel against God. And that rebellion is such a part of their nature that just doesn't go away. There is no repentance in hell. They're not sorry for their sins. They're sorry they got caught for it. And Lucifer certainly is one of those. And so Lucifer, I think probably the star is Lucifer / Satan. Although it could be one of his powerful demonic angels. I wouldn't argue against that, but with this being described with the power and authority that he has, having the key to unlock this shaft, he's powerful, whoever it is. Wicked, evil, but nonetheless powerful. So, this brings us to what he does. I saw a star that had fallen from the sky to the earth. The star was given the key to the shaft of the abyss.
Notice the phrase was given.
Yeah.
He didn't have the key.
No.
He couldn't, whoever it was, couldn't do it on his own.
Couldn't do it on his own.
He was given the key.
Given the key, which is a wonderful insight.
Yeah.
That even though Satan is the prince, power of the air, rulers of the darkness of this world, there is still a leash, if you will, on him. And this is another passage that notes that regardless of what is going on, even in the tribulation period, God is still in control. You remember back in chapter 4, the vision that we had there. There's the vision that God is in control. There is a throne. And around the throne, 24 elders, 4 living creatures. And then chapter 5, in the midst of the throne, there is a lamb. So God is still overseeing and in control of it all. Even those things that he authorizes to attack earth. And even though this angel is given the key, he is given a key to the abyss. He is subject to the authority of God. And if you want to skip to verse 11, this being has a name. They had as king over them the angel of the abyss, which evidently must be this angel of verse 1, whose name in Hebrew is Abaddon and in Greek Apollyon, both of them meaning destroyer. So, or exterminator. Either one of those two terms you'll see. So, he's given a key to the shaft of the abyss. Now, this brings us to the question of, where is this? And what is this? So, the word itself, abyss, means without measurable depth. It was used of vast chasms in the land that seemed to be immeasurable. That it focused on something very deep, unmeasurable. And the abyss is never really described in Scripture other than a place that most probably some of the angels who supported Lucifer in his rebellion are kept. Jude 6 tells us that there are angels who are bound. So this is at least one of the places, if not the place, but at least one of the places where demons or fallen angels are kept. And demons know of this place. You remember when Jesus met the guy from the tombs at Gadara, and he cast out the demons. They besought him, do not send us into the deep. Right. There's your word abyss there.
It's actually a geological term for the deepest parts of the ocean.
Yeah, that's right. That term is used for that, for the Marianas Trench and other places like that that are so very deep in the ocean, the abyss. So, it is used as a place of the departed dead. Romans 10:7 includes the word there. But it's best to see this as the location of various servants of evil. Now there's an associated word with this that's found in 2 Peter chapter 2 verse 4. And that is the word tataru or tatarus, which is a word described as hell or something like that. And this could be a part of the abyss. A sections where angels are bound for judgment. Peter talks about that. So where is this? It is a place set up by God, created by him, to house in chains, at least some, but many, fallen angels, demons in other words, until the last judgment, or until, as in chapter 9, they are released. So, where is this? It is a spiritual place. That doesn't make it any less real, but it is a spiritual place. I don't know that you can get a GPS and find abyss,
I'm just sitting here thinking the deep ocean piece is the from those fissures. And that to me is just a picture of this abyss.
Yeah,
You know,
that
how
could
it's
be a,
so deep,
yeah.
so cold, but yet there's still, you know, hundreds of degrees smoke and stuff coming
Yeah.
out of the middle of those
Yeah,
oceans.
those are volcanic vents there. Yeah,
Yeah.
that'd be a good illustration of something like this. So, in the spiritual world that God has created, there is a place called the abyss. And that place evidently has some type of door, for lack of a better term. And this fallen angel, whom we assume is Lucifer, is given a key, obviously by God. This comes from God. And he's given this key to open this shaft of the abyss. Now, is this opening the whole or part? You know, I think we're almost splitting hairs to go there on that. I don't know.
Does it really matter?
Doesn't really matter. Yeah, don't think it does. But God allows a key. Either he gives it to him himself, or an angel gives it to him. Either way, it is coming from God. He didn't sneak the thing. God allows him to open this place. Now, the last time the word abyss is used in the book of Revelation is at the beginning of the millennial reign of Jesus, chapter 20, verses 1 through 3. When Lucifer is cast and locked in there. So once again, this place has some type of lockable entrance.
It's almost like the devil was either locked in there or eating there. Sounds like something that's going to let him out.
Yeah, he's going to be locked in there for that 1,000 years while Jesus is on earth. And then it's going to be unlocked. He's going to be let loose again. So this concept of the abyss and what it does and its purpose is really quite interesting. We're never given a full description of what it's about, but what we are given, is quite tantalizing. So, where is this? This is evidently a part of hell. What part? I don't know. But it's a part of the place called hell. Now, bringing that up leads us to this thought that often comes up. And in thinking of, what seems to be compartments. If this is a part of hell, it's a compartment of it. Are there levels of hell or punishment?
Seems to be.
Okay. Seems to be, okay? Other ideas? Have you thought about that? Rick is saying, no, I ain't really giving that much time to it. It's not that big a deal to me. I ain't going, so I ain't got to worry about it,
But Jesus went to the city of Capernaum.
I'm sorry?
Jesus went to the city of Capernaum, and he told the inhabitants that he won't talk for those in Sodom and Gomorrah, them.
Yeah. And then that judgment, yeah.
So
Yeah.
we get some
Yeah,
clues.
yeah, there are passages that really seem to indicate that there are levels of hell and thus levels of punishment. And one of the things that raises this question in our mind and really pushes back against this idea of levels of hell is that we have what we call everyday sinners. These are people that are lost. They're sinners. But then it seems we have people who have just dug deep into sin. Ahab, Jezebel, Nero, Hitler. I mean, just rattle off, names of those through history. And in Revelation chapter 20, verse 12, it seems to imply degrees of evil being addressed because the books were opened. And the dead were judged out of the books of how they lived. They were already lost. So if they're already lost, what's the point of looking at the books unless there were extra things that certain ones had done that they're going to be judged for? So it seems to be. Now,
it would stand to reason, too, that if there's levels of reward or crowns in heaven based on what those that are saved do with their salvation,
then it makes sense
the reason that
there would be on the other side of that levels of hell. Yeah. Yeah, I think so. I do.
This causes all kinds of problems, this statement that you're
Okay.
making. In real-
Talk to me about it.
Because, not necessarily me, but it does because, okay, so all sin is equal.
Mm-hmm.
And then Billy Graham has no more standing. God loves everybody equal. Everybody, is loved. You're a child of God. You don't have to work your way in or anything. And so that kind of opens the little doors for things like that. To me, that statement does.
Yeah, and I've run into that before in talking about, the possibility of compartments of hell, possibility of degrees of punishment. It almost sounds Catholic
And
in a
levels
sense,
of rewards sounds like, I have some friends that are Jehovah's Witness in Atlanta, and see your rewards and your work, and you're almost on that level, or Mormon, even
Yeah.
Mormon working and everything,
Yeah.
which a lot of people have such trouble with, but that's almost talking like Mormons, that you work your levels.
No, salvation is a free gift that's open to everyone, and that's based on the gospel of Jesus Christ. Now, once a person is saved, what you do with your salvation, in terms of working for Christ, you'll be rewarded for that based on what you do. That's a separate from salvation, totally different.
Oh, no, I understand that. I'm just saying in general, because even that sentence, working for it, implies that you're working for it.
And part of the problem that comes up in looking at levels of hell is that, and this is something that sinners will go after. And I've seen cartoons and stuff like this, over the years, that, people say, well, if I knew I was going to end up in hell, I'd have been a lot worse than I am, and they're just talking to somebody in hell. It almost seems like that there could be a place of hell that is not as bad as other places. But in looking at this, we have to have one thing solidly in place, is that hell is separation from all that is good in God.
Who's running it?
God is. God runs hell.
So you're saying that Hitler would be like the top level, kick back in the shades, so I'm saying?
Yeah, some people actually look at it that way. Well, I can take it. The best that hell will give you is torment. That's the best. Total separation from God and torment for that.
I think the first level of hell is probably Burger King, because you have that charged smell of meat and that crazy looking guy, the king. That's probably the first level of hell.
Yeah, and that would be another separation from all that is good. Except for whoever likes Burger King. But we have to nail that down, because hell isn't like it's really hot down here, but it's not nearly as hot up here as it is down here. It's almost bearable here. No. The best that hell is torments. Ask the rich man of Luke chapter 16.
Absolutely.
You know, he just wanted a drop of water. To him, that was a splash of refreshment. So, the very best that hell can give a person is torments and separation from all that is good. There is nothing good in hell. There aren't the morally right, good, lost people that will be there formulating some law or government so that we can make it here. No, you are separated from all that is good. You are in the midst of torment. It is not a regime. It is a punishment. And I think we, you know...
And there's an indication in that example you gave of the rich man that he's separated from all other souls.
Yeah.
He doesn't say that he's with a group of his buddies.
His buddies, yeah. Yeah. So you've got separation. It's separated from all that is good. And you have also in the descriptions of hell, darkness.
Yeah.
So how can you have a lake of lava, if you will, a vent, volcanic vent, and it still be dark? You know, once again, this is the best hell gives. This is the best that it has. Is torments of darkness and separation from all that is good. So
describe the other levels that you're talking. This almost reminds me in college when I had to read Dante's Inferno.
No, yeah.
But describe, so like, I see what you're saying, so like, it just causes me trouble to say, because like you've got, let's say, the businessman that never believed in God, and you've got Hitler, but
right.
always, you know, what's the difference that you're thinking?
Yeah. And so I think part of the problem is this idea that we put a physicality to level.
Right.
I don't know that there is a level. I'm sorry.
It's our human minds when, you know, we don't know what God's thinking.
Yeah.
We don't have the mind
Yeah.
of God. It's our humanness that.
Indeed. So, you know, when we think of that, we often think of physical. Okay, if this is the best and it's hell, it's all this, then how many levels are there? Are there hundreds? Are there two? Are there three? What? And are they stationed? No, I don't think this is the operation at all. Because the level of torment that a person like Hitler, Stalin, Mao Zedong, whoever, you know, pick your greatest. The level of memory, the level of what I could have done, the level of how I could be, but didn't, that could be a level down here that a person who is experiencing this is the best that it gets right here. But in their mind, in their conscious being, is a greater hell, if you will, to them than someone who wasn't an empire builder, wasn't this, wasn't that. I think we need to look at levels as more as what God inflicts into the mind, just as the rewards. It's not that we're going to have, you know, really good Christians up here and really Christians here, and then the rest of us Baptists are down here. You know, it's not, you know. And we put the Methodists down on the bottom if you want to. I don't care, you know.
You know, when we talk about the works, it's not so much because the Bible tells us that that the rewards based on what we have done here. Well, it's not necessarily works, but okay, God has said, I want you to stick to that person. You know that that's what that you're supposed to do. And you say, God, no, I'm not going to do it. You know, I can't do much works as a relationship and in tune and knowing what he's calling me to do.
1 Corinthians 4.
You go to Matthew 19, okay?
Mhm.
Matthew 19, verse 27. This is Jesus with his apostles, okay? Peter answered, we have left everything to follow you. Talking about left to follow Jesus. What then will be for us? In other words, he's saying, what is in it for us? We've left everything. What are we getting out of this? Jesus said to them, I tell you the truth, at the renewal of all things, when the Son of Man sits on his glorious throne, you who have followed me will sit on 12 thrones judging the 12 tribes of Judah. Okay? So he's telling them what's in it for them.
Mhm.
So there is some reward.
Yeah, yeah. And the reference to 1 Corinthians 4 is interesting because in that passage, Paul says that God will judge the motives.
Right.
It isn't so much what you did. Because he said to the Pharisees, you love to stand in the street corners and have your hands raised up praying. He said, you've already got your reward. So he's looking at motive. The basis of our rewards won't be so much that, okay, you did all of this, but what was your heart in it? What was the motive behind it? That's what God looks at. We don't know that, but God does, and that's what he judges for us as believers. And I think that same concept looks at the motive and can fall into this concept of levels of judgment or degrees of punishment. Once again, don't look at it as, top floor, it's only 10,000 degrees, bottom floor, it's 1,000,000. No, don't look at it that way. Look at it from the standpoint of what that individual, because using Hitler as an example, he would still say, if those German people had followed me like I wanted them to, we would have won the war. I didn't lose the war, they lost the war. That would still be there. That type of torment would be much more in his mind than the German soldier who got shot in the invasion of Poland, and he was just trying to follow orders. He's lost, but he wouldn't have all of this whole concept that Hitler would. So, I'm sorry? He probably didn't even want to be there, yeah. Unless he was SS Waffen,
One thing about Hitler, he's going to be by himself. He's not going to go to hell.
No.
He's just going to be each one of them levels.
And you think about how much, for lack of a better term, how much hell we put ourselves through when we sit there and think about something and allow it to stew in us. We do it today. There are things that come back to my mind that happened 50 plus years ago. And I'm thinking, okay, now wait a minute. Why am I still concentrating on something that happened 50 plus years ago? I can't undo it, can't change it. Why? But it's a ghost, it's a memory, it's something that floats into our minds. We do that to ourselves. We get something on our mind and we start stewing, we start focusing on it, and it just builds and builds, and all of a sudden we've taken an anthill and made an Everest out of it in our minds. And if we ever happen to say it out loud, well, all of a sudden it goes back to an anthill because we realize how dumb it is to make an Everest out of it. But we do that to ourselves. Just imagine being in torments and being separated. You don't have a support group in hell. And you're concentrating your students. If those people at that church hadn't been, then I would know. You're always blame shifting, focusing on somebody else, and that's stewing in your mind for eternity. And all it does is continue to stew and get worse and worse. So for somebody like a Hitler and a German soldier, somebody like a Kennedy and a slave owner, differences. Differences. And we could keep throwing all kind of names out there, you know. So, and this is why I brought it up. I knew I was figuring it would probably, you know, hit that nerve and, you know, create some discussion. But these things come up. Lost people think about this. And they think, okay, I live pretty good, so I really ain't going to have it that bad in hell. The best they'll have is this. So don't look at the concept of levels or degrees of punishment as a physical, you know, you're on the bottom floor in the basement, everybody else is up there, you know, up in the top floor of the balcony. It's more of a degree of the level of iniquity that we had as sinners on earth that will continue to deepen, just like Lucifer. That verse says that he is fallen. He is falling. He is continuing to fall in his being. He hates God, if it's possible. He hates God more now than he did when he first rebelled in heaven. After all that has happened.
And he hates his creation.
And he hates his creation. So, you know, think about it from that standpoint. So, I think, and in looking at Revelation chapter 20, verse 14, 15, that passage states that death and hell are thrown into the lake of fire. So, this implies that the lake of fire is in some degree. Now, fire is fire. You know, you burn your finger, you burn your finger. Yeah, you know, now I know there's blast furnaces and all this, but it's still fire. But it seems that there are degrees of punishment. I don't know that we can definitely hammer it down as a certainty of Scripture, because we can come up with all kind of arguments, but it seems that there are degrees. God knows how to do that. Just as he knows how to give us the rewards and nobody be jealous, he also knows how to deliver punishment so that nobody gets a free ride. He's able to do both because he understands it in that degree of level. So, in thinking about, and I know I'm about to run out of my time, so I'm just going to introduce this part, and we'll dig into this some more next week. In thinking about the regions beyond this life, we encounter several words that, when we run into them in Scripture, they sometimes cause us some problems. Sheol, Hades, and Gehenna. And next week, we'll look at the relationship of these three words because we run into them in the Bible. And really, the Sheol is only used one time in outside literature other than the Old Testament. This Hebrew word is not, they don't use it in other Hebrew writings very much at all. It's almost an exclusive term in the Old Testament. So you see these in your Bible. You'll have some Bibles that will have the word Sheol, or sometimes they'll use the word in, it's translated grave, it's translated hell, it's translated the pit, and a number of places in the Old Testament. And it's an interesting word. It goes right in line with what we were talking about today. And then the Hades of the New Testament and the Gehenna, which is also a Greek word. that is found in the New Testament as well. So we'll look at those next week. So, you know, look at your passages that talk about that. And one interesting thing about Sheol, and I'll let you go with this. Good people and bad people go to Sheol. So, that's a teaser for next week. Thank you. Good discussion, y'all.